started, want to first give you an update on the noise ordinance stuff we discussed last week. We had some off-duty PPD officers working some traffic enforcement detail, as has been reported. DIB helping fund a good chunk of that. We also, of course, had some CRI officers down there paying increased attention to that as well in concert with that effort. And that was on Thursday, May 16th, and Saturday, May 18th. So there were a total of 45 citations issued. I had this number wrong earlier. It was actually 25 exhaust violations, 6 loud music noise violations, 1 citation for drifting and stunt driving. And there were 4 arrests, 1 felony warrant from Escambia County that someone was pulled over and then had an outstanding warrant with our sheriff, 2 unregistered vehicles, and then 1 habitual driving with a suspended license, and also gave out 3 warnings. So those are the data points, and we're appreciative. I think that's shows that we've got an issue. That was 2 days. Friday, we did not do Friday because of gallery night. Obviously, there weren't vehicles going down Palafox with it closed. But I think it shows that we have an issue, and I'm appreciative of our ramped up enforcement, DIB's partnership with it. We'll continue to push that forward. I think this is yet another element of the ecosystem of a fast growing downtown, whether that's things we've talked about many times, whether that's parking, whether that's stepping up enforcement of things like this. When you have 30% more people downtown than you did in 2021, things change, and lots of things change. It's not just one. They change for the better. We look at South Palafox as an example of enhancement. How do we make things a little more walkable downtown? Make sure our infrastructure is there to continue to support this growth. Do we want to have funding one day if studies show that parking structure is needed? Those are all things that we need to be looking at, not just when they come land at our feet, but also we need to start planning. And what a great problem for a mayor to have, that we've got a growing downtown, and that requires growing pains sometimes, and it requires changes of behavior sometimes like this. But I think it's a sign of growing downtown, and I think that's what every mayor would want to say and want to have. So that is our update for the first week, and that effort will continue. Airport update. This past Sunday was the busiest day of 2024. So far, 11,600 passengers passed through the airport. This is the 21st busiest day since 2019. So busiest day of the year so far, 21st busy since 2019. And the wait times average around 6.5 minutes. Obviously, these are measured by TSA, and a maximum of 13 minutes. The record stood for 24 hours, and then we set the 2024 record on Monday with 12,000 passengers coming through. So we'll see what happens today. I don't know. Maybe we'll set the record every day, but yeah, obviously we continue to stay busy. We expect it to increase rapidly as we get into the summer season. And again, I want to appreciate the Jacksonville office of TSA. They continue to keep us updated on what they're doing. They just notified us on Monday that they've got 7 new officers, TSA officers, agents trained that are not part of that force that came in, but actually we're ramping up staffing as a whole. 4 of them are ready to go. 3 of them will need a little more training. They can do some of the aspects and then need a little more training. So those are little updates, but I certainly appreciate the open line of communication, and that's been a significant improvement. That we feel like that TSA knows what we're dealing with. They know that we're 33% understaffed in terms of the total staff numbers, and they're helping us do something about that. So very appreciative for that. Just a reminder about smoke alarms. You obviously it's been reported you're aware of the fire in Marcus Drive, and that a woman had passed away in that fire, and there were no smoke detectors inside the home, which is unfortunately the recurring issue that we've seen through my administration, at least, where we've seen this influx of fire and fire-related deaths. So if you need a smoke alarm, we continue to remind people. We've been in several neighborhoods. Red Cross has been a great partner. Hundreds and hundreds of smoke alarms that are in houses that did not have them. So we do our best to get to all of those homes. 436-5200. If you call the fire department, 436-5200, no charge to you, no charge for the service. They'll come put it in for you. It's free. And if we could just get that word out, it could save lives. So unfortunate. I don't have a lot of details, and certainly would allow the fire department to speak to other details related to the fire, because I won't have any additional information other than what I just told you, and I know they would be available to tell you what they can. Pools are opening. Roger Scott and Cecil Hunter will open this Saturday, May 25th. We're finalizing the scholarships, and that information will get out this week before we get everything open. Mayor's cleanup. We notify everybody that's in that area and have area between East Maxwell and East Cervantes, and then North Davis and Bayou Tahar. So that's the area for this Saturday's Mayor's cleanup. And as a reminder, we'll unveil the JC's historical marker this Thursday at 8:30 at Community Maritime Park. And we'll celebrate the 1955 JC Little League team that I'd mentioned in previous weeks. So Thursday, 8:30 at Maritime Park. Glad to have that going. A couple other things that came in this morning. We are getting daily updates from our arborist on FPL's pruning that's happened downtown. We said when that had happened early on in my administration, we weren't pleased with the communication or the result, that we would do a better job, and FPL pledged that they do a better job of proactive communication, and so far that is what we've experienced. So again, like TSA, don't want to just come and share the bad news. When people have had service recovery and helped us out, I certainly want to give credit where credit's due, and so I appreciate our team that's going out there and getting daily updates. But that pruning is happening now in the downtown area and I think I believe the dates were the remainder of May. Obviously, those are subject to weather and what FPL will do. And then last thing, 11 companies. Good news. We had 11 companies at the pre-bid meeting for the Tippin parking lot Tippin Road parking lot for the additional airport spaces that I'd mentioned before. So that's a great sign with lots of interest and as you'll recall, we're going to be incentivizing the winning bidder to get that done in time for the holidays. We're putting our money where our timeline is, and that we're going to make sure that those get done as quickly as possible. So we'll see what happens, but obviously that's a good sign to see that much interest. Actually, and lastly, there's a man named Bob Benz that passed over the weekend, who's been very, very involved in the community. Someone we're close with, an All-American football player at Catholic High School, CPA here for 42 years, involved in tons and tons of activities throughout the city, and definitely will be missed. I know he's got a service on Friday, but just wanted to mention, again, someone who's been a pillar in our community that we've lost over the weekend. So that's it for me. Happy to take your questions.
Mayor, this Thursday, the council's going to vote on 925 East Jackson Street, advertising to Community Land Trust. There's some questions brought up yesterday about the breakdown of what's required of affordable housing. It said at least 51% of 80% AMI. What is that? The exact range you're looking for, or would it be lower than 80% AMI, and is it going to be? It said 51%. So is that only half there are 14 units built? Is only half the units going to be affordable?
I think it's too early to speculate on exactly what that mix will be because of a few things. Obviously, we want it to be successful, and I think in any affordable housing, you're looking for opportunities for mixed income housing, right? On one hand, if you do only 30% housing in a location, there's criticism and concern with that, and when you do 120% income housing in a location, there's criticism and concern with that, because if you look at 120% AMI, it's pretty close to market, to be honest. So it probably will be somewhere in that middle. That it's limited to 51% has not been shared with me that would be the case. I think there's going to be a right mix, that a land trust, that as we would get into a land trust negotiation and those types of things, I think we would bear that out. And of course, the council would have opportunity to look at that. I can't speak for what their desires are or anything like that. What I'd say is we want the most efficient, successful mix that we can have. I would, if you're asking me philosophically, I think that 80% area, that workforce housing, makes a lot of sense, but that might be a couple 60, a couple 80, a couple 100, So I'm open-minded about that. I'm going to let experts that are more expert than me analyze that, and then we'll make a decision from there. But what I'm most looking forward to is we can now say that it actually will stay affordable, which we've never been able to say before. So when it's questioned whether this is what the intent is, then if you can beat more than 99 years of intent of this to stay affordable, then show me the project in the city where that's happening. So very much looking forward to that. I know there's been questions around uses, and obviously you guys are aware of the process of disposition. That's a formalized process that we have to go through. I think the reality is we look at that all the time, and I think if you look at the resident satisfaction survey, and I think if you look at the Hoff Center resident satisfaction, and the quality of life survey, that Mason-Dixon, two very reputable organizations with large sample sizes that match our city, and you ask them what the concerns are. I think concerns are housing. So you don't have to take my word for it, but straw polls about what is or isn't good, with no context to cost, with no context to understanding. A new gym sounds good when it's free. When it's $10 million, and if that were to require some kind of TIF or some kind of tax increase or some kind of then that might change people's opinion. So what I go off of is what do we say as a community is the most important thing? We say it's public safety, and we say it's housing. And you can check the last 2 years of both of those polls, and that's what you'll see. Housing, homelessness, which have a lot of things intertwined within, and public safety. So that's what we're going off of, not just at this project, but that's the tack that we're taking right now citywide, and I think we're showing that through a lot of the projects we have.
You sponsored a thing about raising the stormwater assessment fees.
Yes.
What was discussed? Why do we need to raise it?
Yeah, well, we've been saying it for several years now. This is not new news. As a matter of fact, during my public budget meetings last year, I've said this will be the last year that we can afford. Well, we can't, because we've lost another $1.3, $1.4 million, or it had to come out of the general fund to help support this. But that we would give it another year, yet another year, because inflation is, the city government is not immune to inflation. And I sympathize so much with, we're all experiencing it. We're all feeling the pain of inflation. Me personally, our citizens personally, folks on fixed incomes, and city governments. We are not immune to the rising costs of things, rising costs of labor. So these are harsh realities. I don't think anybody wants to be on council or mayor and say, you're going to owe a few more dollars on a stormwater assessment. That's not why we do this. But again, these are realities we have to face. The original recommendation that would stand up by law for us to have done 3 years ago, if we had done that, and I forget if it was 100 or 110. I know it was mentioned in the meeting Monday. I forget offhand. But what that recommendation that was given to the city that we did not decide to do, we only went up to from 70 to 80, I believe. So we just spent $4 million over the last 3 years. But that's the delta between what was recommended to us as a city and what we did. And to give you perspective, we did the largest pay raise in the history of the city, a lot of that out of the general fund. Not all of it, but a lot of that out of the general fund, and that it was $5 million over 3 years. So just when you talk about how taxing that is on public safety, to be taking $4 million over the last 3 years out of the general fund. It's a reality that we now have to face. And I also want to clarify with people that you have to look at this in the category of which you're in. There may be questions about, well, what about folks on fixed income? Which we certainly understand that especially now with the dollar going as not as far nearly as it has in a long time, how painful that can be. We can certainly sympathize with that. But I think it's important to understand how the stormwater assessment works in that folks in the smaller or medium small houses, people in things that are less than 3,000 square feet of impervious space are going to see a significantly less increase than that. This is not a millage. This is not based on your property value. I think there's a lot of misnomer about that. So if you were to have a very small house or very small footprint, or a condo that divided by the building is a very small footprint, we're talking about $12, $15, I believe. That I know the thing was on. Again, I'm going offhand, but and then if you're in the next category, you're talking about $25 a year. So we're talking about a couple dollars for the folks that might be most vulnerable on fixed incomes that are feeling the pain right now more than anyone. That's where you'll see a lot of the impact in the commercial side. If you were to even just split up commercial and residential as a whole at all sizes, it's commercial, but you have to understand commercial is also where we see the biggest pain of stormwater. Enormous impervious parking lots. That is why do you have an assessment? It's when you aren't taking care of the stormwater and you're putting it on the city to do it. So it makes sense that it's set up that way. And again, it's a reality that we have to face, not one that's fun. But if you've been in this town the last 30 days, I think you can understand that this is a reality we're living in. And the road to my street floods when we have a hard rain for an hour. I'm not immune to that because I'm the mayor. So we all feel it. People feel it much worse than that. Cordova Park has felt it much worse than that, much worse than I do. So bottom line is a reality that we're going to face, and I would make sure that you do your research and understand that, again, especially at the lower levels, at the smaller homes, this is a minimal impact to you. But this will now put us in a position to be able to clean the 50-plus ponds that we have, to be able to have stormwater capital to start taking on projects. As you saw yesterday, $269 million for our top 10 projects. This will not solve that, but it gives us money to help us leverage as match to be able to go get state and federal funding. So I'm proud of our team and what we've done with the dollars that we have, and we have made it happen somehow after giving up $4 million the last 3 years on what was recommended. And by the way, year one is still below what the current recommendation is. And what I've said, I know I had something come up and I couldn't be there yesterday, and what I would have mentioned to council is that even the year two number, we are going to analyze objectively how things look after year one. And if for some reason we don't have to go completely to the 138 or the year two, then we'll consider that. That we're not trying to make it more painful on our residents than it has to be. But we're going to face these realities and we're going to see what that looks like. So that 1 year of step up was intentional to be able to say, let's look at this increase and let's make sure we're not jumping all the way to the recommendation. To number one, get people to get acclimated with their bill, but also to make darn sure that if we are to get all the way to the largest number, that we're doing right by our citizens.
How far are we behind on capital funding right now?
I'll have to go again. Sorry, I'm going to go off memory. I know we were about. I think we took $700,000, if I remember correct, out of the capital fund. So that's match money. That's to build new stormwater. So we took $700,000 out of our capital fund and had to put it into operations. I know this past year it might be more. So the 120 that we're going to would not fully fund the capital side. It still wouldn't. It won't get us all the way there. But hypothetically, with current estimates, the 138 would. And then again, that gives our engineering department, our public works, now the dollars they need to not just tread water and try to fix the problems that we have at an incremental level, but actually go out and continue to build ponds, continue to build infrastructure. and make sure that those things run. It was a pretty surprising number if you were there yesterday and saw, that street sweepers. It surprised me. I don't know about, that we're picking up 8.8 million pounds of stuff in your streets. I mean, if you made me guess that, I would have said something, a fraction of that. So, you may not see it or it may run in the middle of the night, but those are things that impact our stormwater, impact flooding, and we've got to just take seriously.
Mayor, with the issues of rising costs, do you think, I know you are preparing next year's budget, is a millage rate increase on the table?
We've had no discussion about that. We're too early in the process to say anything definitive, but what I tell you right now, I've had no discussion about that, at this point. But we're still going through some of our internal side budgets and requests and all of those things, and I wouldn't commit to saying I would or would not do anything at this point, but philosophically my intent is not to go that direction. I would say that I can safely say that now.
Mayor, Hollis T. Williams, RFQ 24
Yes.
020. Could you give us an update on that? And I've got a follow-on question as well.
Sure. And if we have some technical stuff that I may not know, we've got Victoria here that could help answer some of the timelines and things like that. Let me ask you: is the second question on the framework? I can kind of speak to that. Yeah.
Framework. That's popped up twice now, block by block. Hollis T. Williams. Is it the same thing?
Let me give you some
philosophical change. Or?
Let me give you some context on that. So you may recall it's been over maybe a year. Over a year since the Harvard Fellowship I was part of, and then I was invited to Mayor's Institute on City Design. We presented Hollis T. Williams both times. And the largest feedback we got, especially with the Mayor's Institute on City Design in Boston, from mayors all over the country, was, and I've mentioned to you guys before, we oftentimes say we're going to go reconnect a neighborhood, and we put a nice pond in, and then we say that that's reconnected the neighborhood. So what other cities have done is they put in framework plans, and what that means is, and we don't know what the result of that's going to be, but it can be things like policies on tax increase. Obviously, in Florida, that's not as big an issue as it is in other places because of Save Our Homes. They could be issues on city actions that they take. It could be policy. It's looking at the surrounding area that you are trying to help and reconnect. So that was the largest single takeaway from both of those that I had personally. And so we were fortunate, really just by fortune of timing, that we had already been through the long, arduous process of the CRA update. Well, the CRA update dovetails very nicely with a specific framework for Hollis T. Williams, because what are we going to do in a CRA update? We're going to go talk to the community about all of these things, and the CRA, as you well know, is all involved in that area. Multiple parts of the CRA are involved in that area. So that's why we thought it was a good time. There's another reality, which is that the $25 million of grant funding that we received at Hollis T. Williams needs to be encumbered in 3 years. So if we were to say, let's just do a CRA update, not only would we be going and knocking on doors twice with a lot of similar information twice, but what would happen is we'd run out of time because we would have to start all over again, 18 months of process, and then we got to have a shovel in the dirt. Well, maybe not all the way there, but we've got to have the money encumbered in a short window. So I confided in a lot of our expert leaders and other mayors that were involved in that, and said, what about this thought of maybe it won't be the same where you go to a large city and they'll have a 9-10 year process to get a $100 million project done, where they've been able to take that time to do it. Is this a good happy medium for us? And this is a team that's well overqualified to be able to do both of these projects, have done it all over the world, all over the country. And so we appreciate kind of them working with us to ensure that we're able to get both of these things done and do it in an efficient way without having to sacrifice one or the other. So lots of converging pieces, John, as you could hear, but I'm happy about how we've been able to handle that with CRA and manage that, and try to get to the best outcome. So,
Mayor, beyond public engagement, what are the principles, as you understand them, of an equitable development framework?
well, look, I think I mentioned it before. I think the principles are what we try to do is pay respect to the neighborhood of which you're revitalizing, not just the park. That's the general concept that we're looking at. I'm going to let experts, is that 4 blocks each way? Is that a half a mile each way? That's not my expertise. I'm going to allow experts to take a look at what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are. So any concept of it's going to be policy, it's going to be property acquisition, it's going to be any of those is not in my expertise. I'm going to allow the experts to come in who have done this all over the country. And so I have no preconceived notions about what those will be. I've obviously heard of examples, and that's why I use those examples. But I think everybody's got unique rules on the books. Every state has unique rules on the books. So something that was a good framework plan in New York or Texas may not be this exact same thing in Florida. So again, that's why we bring the experts in to rely on that. But the overarching principle is our ability to protect and sustain the neighborhood of what you're revitalizing, not just put in a nice stormwater park and then say, well, this is what the neighborhood gets. So we're going to be proactive about that. We're going to help support a Friends of Hollis T. Williams group that we're going to hear from before this work begins, and what I hope is something that sustains well after the project's done. And you see a lot of amazing parks that are citizen-led, citizen-managed. That it's not always the city with 94 parks and growing and all that, or a county is not always in the best position to be as efficient as people who love it and care for it. And so that's a big aspect and something that we're working on intentionally right now, is to try to help harness and foster a group of people who live it, who remember when the interstate came in and dissected the neighborhood, and make sure that their voices are heard. So I'm very excited for it. And again, it was the overwhelming largest outcome from design experts from other mayors that I met with in 2 different cohorts that I'm proud to bring to this project.
So this dovetails with block by block, which has, my opinion, pretty aggressive timeline on the workshops, trying to wrap them up here fairly quickly.
Yeah, timeline. Victoria, if you want to come up, I'll let her speak to the CRA update. I've been involved a little more in the framework on this. Yeah, come on up. On the CRA update, timeline side, I'll let her respond to that.
Just on timeline, the reason you're right, it's absolutely an aggressive timeline, and the reason that it is an aggressive timeline is because of the grant funding that we received for the park, and because it's dovetailing together. We wish it wasn't so aggressive, but we're trying to work around what we have with that. So next week we will have the workshops for both the 3 redevelopment plans and the equity development plan. That'll be Tuesday through Friday, and if you go to the website, engagetheteam.com, you'll be able to see what that schedule looks like.
So one of the workshops is for, and I may have this wrong, but it's business leaders or commercial interest. It doesn't look like a regular citizen neighborhood workshop. Is that open to the public, and who will be extended invitations to attend that?
There is a stakeholder meeting, and that is specifically for businesses in the area. So it's not a general workshop for the general public. Obviously it is the general public, but it is intended for the specific businesses that are within the districts.
Have you extended invitations for that?
Yes. So we have put out mailer invitations to all of the locations within the districts and within half a mile of the park.
Okay. That's basically it, Mayor.
No. Thanks.
Thank you, Victor.
All right. What else? Anything? All right. Thank you, guys.